First tonight, the shocking scale of modern slavery here in the East Midlands. Tonight we can reveal that police have identified 140 suspected victims in the last 3 years alone.
They include foreign children as young as 14 and one woman whose husband sold her into the sex trade. Well, now local Red Cross workers are supporting those who have been rescued. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
Kaylee and Steve are first responders for victims of an appalling hidden crime.
Right, let's check the box first.
They take clothing, food and blankets to modern slaves who've been rescued in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, people who were often bewildered and terrified.
It really is a life-changing moment for some people because they've got literally the rags that they're standing up in. Such a basic item such as a toothbrush and toothpaste can make such a difference to an individual who's had nothing of their own personal property, and their whole life has been ruled by someone else, and all of a sudden they have choice.
I feel like I lost everything.
Maria told me how she escaped from domestic slavery. She'd taken a job as a maid, but she wasn't paid or even fed properly. She couldn't leave because her passport had been confiscated, and it's a growing police priority. Now, we've used a Freedom of Information request to obtain details about modern slavery inquiries by 4 East Midlands forces. They identified 140 suspected victims in the last 3 calendar years. Most were foreign nationals. Many of the suspects were never prosecuted. That's because victims are often simply too scared to give evidence. But what's most shocking are the details. Here in Nottinghamshire, one woman said she'd been sold to a brothel by her husband. Another said she'd been forced into prostitution with threats to kill her family. And a boy went to the police to say that traffickers were forcing him to pickpocket. Meanwhile, in Lincolnshire, several homeless people were duped into hard labour, and some victims even signed over their homes. That's no surprise to academics who research modern slavery.
As a slave, you cannot walk away. It's a very lucrative business model. From the outside, they actually look like legitimate business mechanisms. So it might be a loan that you're taking out from your employer, but that loan is designed in a way that you can never possibly repay it. You use physical abuse, you lock people into houses, also control over their family back in their home country. Slaves today are cheaper than ever before in human history.
For Steve and Kaylee, it's about making the victims feel human again. And the more the authorities look for modern slavery, the more they're finding.
As you can see, Jeremy's joined us in the studio. Why has modern slavery become such a priority for the police?
Well, I think it's because there's been a sea change in attitudes, really. Good examples, Vietnamese cannabis farms, where growers used to be jailed. Now they tend to be recognised as victims of trafficking gangs. And this is partly down to new laws to tackle modern slavery. The big problem, though, is that this is all hidden, and what we're hearing about might just be the tip of the iceberg. In fact, some police chiefs reckon that across the UK there could be 20,000 modern slaves.
That's a huge number, isn't it? How are people sort of getting into this and becoming modern slaves?
Well, they're getting trapped, really, for a variety of reasons. Foreign nationals are often promised good jobs here that simply don't materialise. When they arrive, the recruiters have confiscated their passports and they're controlling their bank accounts. We're also hearing about vulnerable British victims, sometimes people with learning disabilities who get befriended by criminals and then forced to live like slaves once they settle in. And this is really all about controlling people through a combination of violence and debts.
I gather one police force is trying a new way of tackling this.
Yeah, Derbyshire Police are taking to social media. They've actually unveiled a Twitter account today for their modern slavery team. Now, that's going to give information about how to identify potential victims, as well as the police response. And this is all part of a new push they've got called Operation Wilberforce. And in Nottingham tomorrow, a Polish landlord called Simon Brzezinski is due to be sentenced for modern slavery offences.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Jeremy.